Welcome, everyone, to this FL Team Show where we will preview the Tampa Bay Lightning season. I have myself, Isaac Edelman, the founder of FL Teams, here with Jeff Macolino, a fantastic podcaster here on FL Teams. Jeff, I'm so happy for you to be here with me to preview the upcoming Lightning season.
Yeah, glad to be here, Isaac. Excited to get the season rolling again.
Well, I think we all are, especially Tampa Bay Lightning fans. They have just won back to back Stanley Cups, and they'll be going for a third straight Stanley Cup this season. And I'm going to ask you a few questions on this show, and we're going to bounce around some topics because the Lightning are one of the best teams in the NHL, arguably the best team in the NHL, and there's a lot to discuss. So my first question for you, Jeff, is what is the Tampa Bay Lightning ceiling for the 2021-2022 season?
Until someone can dethrone them as champions, I think the ceiling is winning the Stanley Cup again. I know it's unlikely. I mean, it takes a lot of luck to win a Stanley Cup, really. I mean, it takes injury luck, it takes some just weird bounces of the puck at times going your way. But the Lightning do have the best goaltender in the league, in the world. And when you have that in net, I think the ceiling is always a championship.
Awesome. And we'll have to see if Tampa Bay can overcome the losses of Gaudreau, Coleman, and Gord, who are three of the Lightning's top five penalty kill forwards last season. And again, the Lightning have won back-to-back Stanley Cups because they are so good on offense and defense. So we'll see if that affects them this upcoming season. Now, Jeff, which offseason move did you like the most?
My favorite thing, I want to obviously acknowledge Braden Point's massive extension. That's obviously huge for the future of the franchise. But under the radar move that I loved was re-signing Zach Bogosian back on the defense to really take Savard's spot. He left as a free agent. And Bogosian, Lightning fans should remember him from the first Stanley Cup run. And he added such a physical element to that defense, and it looks like he'll be teaming up with Sergachev as his defensive partner, and I think that adds a lot, keeping the defense stout in front of Vasilevsky.
Yeah, and personally, I like the John Cooper extension. Obviously, John Cooper is the head coach of the Lightning, and he was signed to a 3-year extension. And obviously, the Lightning have the players, and that's why they are so competitive and so skilled these last few seasons. But a head coach, especially in the NHL, has a lot to do with their team's success. So I definitely want to bring that up. Now, I know I discussed, the losses of Gaudreau, Coleman, and Gord, and some of those players made up the Lightning's third line. How will they replace their third line from last season?
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how things develop. In their last preparation before the season started, the third line was Colton was going to be the center, who obviously had a great rookie season and showed up in the playoffs. And then Corey Perry, the veteran, 35-year-old who was signed as a free agent this offseason, and Matthew Joseph are on the wings. And I think that's a pretty solid third line. There are some talks that even Stamkos might come down to the third line and Joseph go up to the second line with Cirelli and Killorn, which is interesting. It would, I think that actually would make the second and third lines a little more uh, likely to end up scoring a goal. Corey Perry, of course, I mean, he scored 50 goals in a season back in his heyday. Obviously, he's past his prime, but he's a solid player. He's a scrappy player, and teaming him up with guys like Colton and Stamkos or Joseph, I think Matthew Joseph's going to have a 20-goal season. So I think the third line is going to be maybe not quite as gritty as what we were got to enjoy with Gord and Goodrow and uh, Coleman. But the fourth line is going to be nasty. Pat Maroon, Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, and it looks like Taylor Radish is going to get the first go around with that fourth line. That's going to be a line that is going to hit you, and they're going to be very rough and aggressive on both ends of the ice.
Yeah, and a lot of NHL teams can't afford to switch around their lines mid-season, but because the Lightning have so much depth and they're such a good organization, they could always switch around their lines mid-season and they'll still win so many games. And again, they should head into the playoffs with the number one seed. And that's what I want to ask you now. The Lightning, obviously, last season was a shortened season, 56 games, and they were in a different division. This year, where do you expect them to sit? I know you already broke down kind of, how skilled they are, right? They're the best team in the league. But does that necessarily mean they're going to still finish best in the league record wise?
Well, funny thing, last year, and it was a bigger and different division, but last year they were 36, 17, and 3. They were actually third in the Central Division behind Carolina
Exactly.
and Florida. Um, the thing with the Lightning is I certainly think they're capable of finishing first. They do have stiff competition in the division and in the conference. Um, I think the key for the Lightning is just getting into the playoffs. If some things happen during the season where they don't finish in first place, I don't think they're a team that is going to require home ice advantage to win a series in the postseason. Um, so no, Florida is a really tough team, and unfortunately, they don't get to play each other, the Lightning and Panthers, as much as they did last season, because if the preseason was any indication, they still don't like each other very much. Um, but no, I think the key for them is just going to be, injuries are going to happen. You hope it's not a major player, but of course, last season, remember the regular season, they didn't have Nikita Kucherov at all, and they finished pretty close to being on top. And with Kucherov, you got to think they may have finished on top of that division. Of course, they wouldn't have been able to field the team with the salary cap, but that's a whole separate issue.
Yeah, we can have a a 3-hour show on that topic alone. So we're gonna stay away from that. But now I want to move, to some player questions. Obviously, you answered, and I could say the same as you did, that Andre Vasilevsky is the best goalie in the NHL. What about Victor Hedman? Is he the best NHL defenseman?
I wouldn't take anyone over him. I don't know that he's necessarily number one, but he certainly is the best player for the Lightning in their situation. He's so dangerous on both sides of the ice. And just looking at thinking back to the power play and how just spectacular it was in the postseason when they had Kucherov and Stamkos back. The key to that power play is maybe Kucherov, but you could argue that it's Hedman playing the point. Uh, he is just such an important piece to this team. There's nobody I would take in a trade for Victor Hedman as a defenseman. I think he is just still on top of his game and dominant.
I completely agree with you. Hedman plays a terrific two-way game, and he contributes to Tampa Bay's scoring while playing a responsible defensive game. And that's what, makes him such a good defensive player. Again, possibly the best defenseman in the NHL. I know you talked about Nikita Kucherov a bit. Will he win the Art Ross Trophy, which goes to the player that leads the NHL in points?
I don't know if I'd put my money on him, but I certainly wouldn't bet against him. He's led the postseason in points each of the last two seasons, which is an amazing accomplishment. He racks up assists. He scores goals, obviously, but he racks up assists at a crazy rate. And he's still going to be on that line if Palat and Point stay healthy on that first line with him through most of the season, as well as obviously the power play unit. Kucherov is going to be right up there. I don't see him not finishing in the top three as long as he stays healthy this season.
I completely agree. There's just one player that's, in the back of my mind. It's Connor McDavid. He still plays
Mm-hmm.
at a very high level, and I think that if Kucherov doesn't lead the NHL in points, it's going to be McDavid. So,
Agreed.
look, there's always so much to discuss when it comes to the Lightning, but I do want to highlight a few last things. Look, we are FL Teams. FL Teams is a site, a top Florida sports source. We also cover the Florida Panthers because we cover all sports in the state of Florida. The Panthers and Lightning, they've become rivals. I think as each year goes by, we're going to see, the rivalry, really, really, really gain power, strength, and popularity. So I want to ask you this, Jeff. The Panthers and Lightning, do you consider them one of the best rivals in the NHL, or do you still think they need a few more years?
If they can both stay good for another couple of seasons, I certainly think it's an incredible rivalry. I don't know if it gets the national recognition as some of the older teams that have been around longer get. But boy, the Panthers are really, they've kind of, to me, it looks like they've almost taken a Lightning route to their roster, meaning they've got a lot of skilled players. They've got a great young goalie now. And they also have that mix of guys who like to be rough. And that was the knock on the Lightning years ago when they kept falling short, was that they didn't have that edge and that toughness. That's why I brought up a guy like Bogosian earlier. But the Panthers seem to have made a concerted effort of, yeah, we've got our skilled skaters. Now we got some guys who will hit you, and it's not going to be fun to play against us. So I give the Panthers a lot of credit, and I do think they are building a similar team. I don't know if they have quite the level of player that the Lightning do at some points. Mainly, again, it's hard to find your Victor Hedman, but they're building a great organization. So I think I don't see either team going down in flames over the next few seasons. So I think this rivalry will continue to grow, and hopefully just none of the players get hurt.
Yeah, there's so many similarities between the Panthers and Lightning. You could compare Ekblad to Victor Hedman. Again, Ekblad almost won, the best defenseman award last season. He got injured. You can also compare Spencer Knight. He could be a future Andrei Vasilevsky. Of course, you can compare the Panthers' top two players and Alexander Barkov and Jonathan Huberdeau to, Steven Stamkos and Nikita Kucherov from the Lightning. So there's so many similarities, and I have to agree with you. The Panthers and Lightning, their rivalry is there. I just think that they need more recognition. And it could come from ESPN. Obviously, ESPN now is covering the NHL, and I think, if the Panthers and Lightning game is on ESPN, which isn't going to happen this season, but in the future, and especially in the playoffs like last season, the Panthers and Lightning could, have maybe a Red Sox Yankees type of rivalry feel. I don't know. That's hard to match, but it's definitely possible.
If they have another playoff matchup with those two teams in the next couple years, we already know there's going to be a lot of hitting. And with ESPN covering it, that's the kind of thing that's going to lead off Sports Center, not be a footnote at the back of a broadcast. So I think the NHL as a whole is set to get a little more attention than they have been getting recently. And again, the Lightning, back-to-back champions, and the Panthers are a team on the rise for sure. So, hopefully both teams individually get a little more attention than they've gotten. But yeah, if they have some of those games like their first preseason game, which was a melee disguised as a hockey game, that's going to definitely draw some eyeballs to the rivalry.
Awesome analysis, Jeff. I'm Isaac Edelman, founder of FL Teams, here with Jeff Macolino, our fantastic podcaster. Make sure to check out Jeff Macolino on FLTeams.com and FL Teams across all podcast platforms. Jeff does a fantastic Bolts and Bats in the Bay show where he covers the Lightning and the Rays, and he does fantastic coverage weekly of those two teams. And for myself, I run this fantastic website. Again, FL Teams, please check it out at FLTeams.com. FL Teams covers all sports in the state of Florida, both college and professional teams. And we can't be more than happy to be covering the Lightning. They keep on winning Stanley Cups, and we'll see if they win another Stanley Cup to make it 3 straight Stanley Cups this upcoming season. Anyway, Jeff, thanks so much for coming on. Peace out.
Thanks, Isaac.